You're recording right now.
We are recording right now. Hey, what's up? You're in the church.
I'm in the church. Did you want to start over again though? Because
we are starting over right now.
Oh, hi. I'm in the church. You know I'm in the church because I have a collar on, which I only wear in the church.
We should almost leave that in.
We can do anything we want.
Wow, technology. All right, so here we are at Trinity Church. I'm in my office, and Sonia is in the church. And today we're gonna do a little conversation about Rite I and Rite II in the Eucharist. And I think many of you know I'm kind of a partisan for Rite I. I love to do our 8 a.m. service, and so that's a thing that I love, and not everybody loves it. So.
Oh, I like Rite I. I don't hate it. But I think I think I'm supposed to be your foil on this one. So just so you all know, if you see me do a Rite I service in the future, I'm not hating every moment of it or anything like that. I do enjoy doing Rite I, but we thought it would be interesting to talk about what we liked about the different services. Because why does Mother Kara like Rite I so much?
That's right.
So tell me.
Well, I think it's, if we look at the whole service,
oh, we're not just talking about the Eucharist. Come on, the whole service.
Hang on though, because I wanted to talk about the confession.
The what?
The confession and the comfortable words.
All right.
So don't roll your eyes, because this is important. Because as you know, I'm sort of a tormented conscience, right?
Fair.
Yeah, it's true. And so if you look at one of the things I think is great about the Eucharist in Rite I, is, of course, the first confession is a very kind of ancient form. We from time to time most grievously have committed, right? It is kind of a fun thing to say, but the thing that I really like about the confession in Rite I, Sonia is very helpfully holding it up to her iPad right now, or holding her iPad up to it, is what's called the comfortable words. It's these sentences of scripture that come after the absolution in Rite I, and only in Rite I. And these sentences are reminders of God's mercy and God's love for us and God's forgiveness to us. That God has forgiven our sins in Jesus Christ. And that goes back to the beginning of the prayer book tradition. And it's I think it's, for me, it's a really helpful reminder that my sins really are taken away in Jesus Christ.
All right. So what about the Eucharist?
Right. All right. Sorry. Continue.
She will not be controlled. God bless her. That's what I love about her.
I'm the one with control issues. What? It's opposite day today. It's opposite day.
It's opposite day today.
So
Eucharistic prayer 1. There's 2. Is there 2? How many Eucharistic prayers are there?
There are 2 in Rite I. So the difference between them is that, and God help me, I don't want to turn into like Anglican studies teacher mode, but
what do you like? How about what do you like about them? What do you like about because you like Rite I better than, like, what does it mean to you?
Yeah, so Rite I, prayer 1 is the one that I really like, which is the really long one.
Okay.
So
I'm gonna show everybody what it looks like when we read it from the altar.
So what I like about Rite I, Prayer 1, now Prayer 2 is sort of just a rendering of Prayer A from Rite II into traditional language, or kind of a condensed version of the first prayer. It kind of thumps a little bit when you say it. I don't like that as much. But the emphasis on in Rite I, Prayer 1 is on the all-sufficiency of the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. I love saying the phrase, that is, give thine only Son, Jesus Christ, to suffer death upon the cross for our redemption, who made thereby his one oblation of himself once offered, a full, perfect, and sufficient sacrifice, oblation, and satisfaction for the sins of the whole world. And it's that sense of Christ's sacrifice really being once for all, being a finished work, right? It's a reminder that, again, that God has done it in Jesus Christ. This is something that is all sufficient. It is something that we have to work at achieving, right? We don't have to save ourselves. God really has completely saved us. I think also there's another sort of famous.
Oh, you know what? We're not side by side.
What?
Are we side by side on yours?
Yeah, we are.
Oh, hi. I'm just here to throw you off your game today. Anyway, tell me what else you like about it.
Yeah. So this is a really famous part of the prayer, right? Here we offer and present unto thee, O Lord, ourselves, our souls and bodies, to be a reasonable, holy, and living sacrifice unto thee. This is where we talk about offering and on the previous page, accept this our sacrifice of praise and thanksgiving. So this is what we're offering back to God in response for his saving work, in our praise and thanksgiving, in offering ourselves. And that's so it's not something that we say, okay, Jesus has done it, God has done it for us in Jesus, and okay, fine, we can just walk away unbothered, right? We also offer ourselves to God.
I think what I like about, I like in Prayer 1, I like the feeling of surrender, that it has, just that there's a lot. We offer and present unto thee, we earnestly desire thy fatherly goodness. We're unworthy, but we, please don't, not weighing our merits, but pardoning our offenses. There's a sense of orienting oneself and sort of surrendering to God's loving embrace in some way.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that also, one more thing that I wanted to bring in on Rite I is a prayer that I think sometimes people feel a little bit weird about, which is the thing called the prayer of humble access. Are you gonna zoom in on it?
Yeah, I'm working on it. All right, fine. Why do you like prayer of humble access, my friend?
Why do I like it?
Mm-hmm.
I like it because again, it really is a prayer of surrender, right? We're not trusting in ourselves, but in you. Okay, in you, God. That phrase, we're not worthy so much as to gather up the crumbs under thy table. And I think that's important to remember, that it's about in ourselves. If we were trusting in our righteousness, we wouldn't be worthy. But thou art the same Lord whose property is always to have mercy. that but in the prayer of humble access is the most important word. And so again, I just see it as a prayer of surrender, again, of stating trust in God. The criticism of it from liturgical scholars is that like it's kind of an interruption in the flow of the Eucharist that you've already confessed, and so how are you? There's a little bit of a sense of going backwards or kind of a speed bump, and so that's why some folks would rather it not be there, and it's not in Rite II at all.
Yep.
So let's do Rite II.
But why do you like it personally? Like,
why do I like it? Why do I like it personally?
Personally.
I said that already.
Okay.
No, because again, I think because it's a way of saying, yes, I can't stand on my own righteousness. I don't need to stand on my own righteousness. I think maybe that's more it, right? I don't need to, I don't have a chance of getting it all right between me and God on my own, right? But I know that I don't have to do that. I absolutely don't have to do that. And so, I mean, honestly, that prayer comes as an encouragement to me, right?
So, okay, so we have in the Eucharistic prayer too, we have four.
In Rite II, yeah.
Rite II, we have 4 prayers.
Yeah.
We mostly do A and B.
Uh-huh.
One more kind of incarnational, right, and one kind of history of
Uh-huh.
Salvation, and then we have what is fondly called the Star Wars prayer and the Gilligan's Island prayer, which is the one that's really Eucharistic prayer C, which is very interactive.
Right.
Eucharistic prayer C is kind of great because it's interactive, but it's also a little bit dorky sometimes. So
yeah, it's one that hasn't. It's very much of its time, right? It's something that was written at a time when,
like the late 70s, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, people were going to the moon or had just stopped going to the moon, right?
We're thinking about things like primal elements, which is not usually language that we use as much right now, right? Or, galaxies, suns, the planets in their courses, and this fragile Earth, our island home, which I think is also a line in Battlestar Galactica, but I'm not sure.
I don't know.
So that's Eucharistic prayer C, but the great thing about it is that it's interactive. And so there's more give and take with the congregation.
Yeah.
And then Eucharistic prayer D is based on, it's very long, but it's based on old, kind of more Orthodox, Eastern Orthodox styles of prayer. And so that continues. And so most kind of broad church traditions kind of stick with A and B and then throw in C every now and again and rarely do D.
Yeah.
Would that be a correct assumption, my liturgical friend?
Yeah, I think it's true. I mean, I think that oftentimes people do shy away from D just because it's long.
Yeah, it's very long.
And
but it's lovely.
It's beautiful. I think we've done it a couple of times last year at Trinity on special occasions. So that's great.
It's a special occasion kind of prayer, isn't it?
Yeah, and prayer D also has a really beautiful and complicated chant tune that goes with it that I think only Joanne can do.
God bless Joanne. Yeah.
God bless Joanne. I at one time I made a kind of a goal to learn to do it, and then
I've managed to avoid all singing throughout the whole of my ministry.
Which is stupid because you have such a beautiful voice. Don't tell anybody, but she's really good at it.
Okay, look, let's go back to the prayer.
Right, okay, sorry.
So this is Eucharistic prayer A.
Yeah.
Holy and gracious Father, in your infinite love. I think I like Eucharistic prayer B better in the sense that it gives you salvation history. But what I love about this one is its incarnational nature, of course, because I love the incarnation, and I love being able to say, "In your infinite love, you made us for yourself." I love that line. And I love the idea that love just kind of pours out through this one. You sent Jesus Christ to share our human nature, to live and die as one of us, to reconcile us to you. So I love the closeness, of course, of this prayer, the sense of God being for us and entering into time, entering into flesh for us. And so that's a beautiful one. And then Eucharistic prayer B I like, because it gives us this nice little summary of salvation history, calling of Israel to be your people, words spoken through the prophets, your son Jesus. It gives a little nod to the Virgin Mary, which I appreciate, and that we are brought out of all these things into life. And so it's a nice summary of salvation history. And so I appreciate that about it. And so I think that I prefer, I've always loved the kind of Shakespearean language. It was sort of my first, what I first cut my teeth on, King James Bible, lots of Chaucer and Shakespeare as a elementary school student with British parents. So there you go. But, and so I love the language of it. But what I find more useful in these prayers is their simplicity, and their succinct way that they deal with situating Jesus and his sacrifice either within history or within time. While sometimes when I'm reading Eucharistic, when I'm doing the Holy Eucharist Rite I, what I'm sensing, especially in prayer 1, are the controversies it was addressing at the time.
Yeah.
So the full, sufficient, perfect sacrifice is not just a theological point for us. It's actually a direct controversy with the Roman Church at the time, and distinguishing us from the Roman Church. And so I like it, but then I'm thinking, okay, well, that's part of the history, and this is part of it, and it's also embedded in its culture, in terms of this question about where salvation, how is salvation efficacious? And so that plays out, because it's playing out in the debates at the time, in an intense way. And so I prefer the theologically situating Jesus and salvation into the broader history, over the debates of what saves you, which was heavy debates at the time. And I know that you're going to, yeah, go ahead. We're going to have to cut this because this is going to get long.
It is long, but I mean, isn't it important to be reminded of what saves you? I mean, see, that's what
Jesus saves you, because it says right here in prayer 1.
That's what I love about
Jesus saves you, but I don't have to repeat it over and over again because I'm arguing with an interlocutor who's no longer there.
But isn't it great to be reminded of that argument, though?
Like over and over again, I'm not worthy, Jesus is, I'm not worthy, Jesus is. Yeah, I guess it is. No, and so I like it sometimes. But it's a broader question that was happening at the time that, I might have if I was a Presbyterian, but I'm not. Sorry, Presbyterians. But so I like it sometimes, especially when I'm feeling particularly unworthy, which happens. And I love the language. But I'm also sensing a little bit of an argument going on with people who are dead.
Yeah. I know. I think that's entirely fair. It is. It's definitely very close to the original prayer book, right? And so it's dealing with those Reformation debates, in the way that the Rite II prayers are really come out of the liturgical movement that was all about sort of recovering the earlier prayers of the earlier church, and so really not as invested in polemic.
Yeah, although this is again we're stepping away from our personal experience, and I think that for a lot of people will love Rite I just because it's in their bones. Right. So, or we'll love Rite II just because that's all they ever knew.
Yeah.
And so part of this is how language forms us and how important language becomes to us. So I would not say to anybody who loves the Rite I service, because actually since coming to seminary,
Yeah.
I've only been attending Rite I services because they're early in the morning. And so I've gotten much more fond of Rite I because it's kind of getting into my bones.
Yeah.
As opposed to before, kind of growing up in church, not growing up in church, but finding church as an adult in California, it was all Rite I. Oh, sorry, all Rite II. So that's kind of what I was initiated into. So part of this is a question of how we just love how we pray.
Yeah, absolutely. And I grew up in when I was a child growing up in an Episcopal parish, right at the time of the shift from the 1928 to 1979 prayer book. So we were all traditional language parish at first. So that rhythm is the rhythm of, I think, of my deepest habit. And it's also something, I mean, on another level, I can hear my father's voice standing next to me saying those words.
Yeah.
And so it's
that's important.
Yeah, it's something that contains a whole constellation of things.
Yeah. Right. And that's what liturgy should do.
Yeah.
It's theological, but also deeply embedded into our lives.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's what makes it beautiful. And I think both of us know, have experienced this as priests, that when folks are very ill, or when they're if they're suffering from dementia or other things, the words of the liturgy that are at the deepest level of their hearts will stick with us.
Yeah. And that's what you want to hear. Oh, that's okay, because that's probably the cue that we should probably.
That's the cue for our staff meeting, but that's a good place to stop, right?
Yeah, because we could really talk about this forever. So we definitely encourage you to love what you love and to experience it deeply, because it's each prayer style, it just offers so much.
Yeah.
Theologically and personally.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, hey, Deacon, you want to say hey too? Come here. And so from me and from Deacon, from all of us, have a wonderful week.
Have a wonderful week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.